Hello and welcome to Pivotal, a Daria media production supported by the MacArthur Foundation. I am your host, Zainab Balogun Olowu, sitting in for Nabila Usman. Many believe life as we know it has changed irrevocably, and that in this seismic shift lies an opportunity to turn things around, improve our world, and make life better for the majority. It is time to reboot Nigeria. This is Pivotal. Education is not just a fundamental right, but a cornerstone for the development anywhere in the world. The Constitution guarantees that every child has a right to compulsory, free basic education. And this underscores the crucial role education plays in our democratic framework. Yet, despite these promises, our education system faces significant challenges. With over 20 million out-of-school children, frequent strikes at the tertiary level, untrained teachers, attacks on schools, inadequate infrastructure, and a curriculum in need of reform. This is the state of education in Nigeria. So what solutions should we explore in the 21st century? How do we prepare young Nigerians for tomorrow's challenges? Today on Pivotal, we reimagine the future of education in the country. In a moment, I will introduce my guest.
The Universal Basic Education Commission was established in 1999 to formulate the policy guidelines for the successful operation of universal basic education programs in the Federation and for related matters. To achieve this, UBEC receives 2% of the Consolidated Revenue Fund from the federal government and allocates to states through a pre-existing counterpart funding arrangement and other relevant agencies implementing the Universal Basic Education Program. As such, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the original intention and mandate of the Commission as contained in the Extant Act is to provide greater access to and ensure quality of basic education throughout Nigeria. Going by this, basic education is to be provided by the federal government, and it shall be compulsory, free, universal, and qualitative. The extant law establishing the UBEC, while laudable, has not achieved the significant aspects of its set goals as intended. For instance, the issue of out-of-school children still proves to be a multifaceted problem with far-reaching consequences. According to the latest global data on out-of-school children by UNICEF, Nigeria has approximately 10.5 million out-of-school children. Regrettably, a concerning trend also persists as a significant level of infrastructural deterioration plagues the majority of public primary schools across all 36 states of the Federation. Despite the proposed capital expenditure for the education sector in the 2024 budget, its potential impact may be limited. With an increment in school enrollment numbers and widespread infrastructural decay, the situation is indeed daunting. It is imperative that we address this while prioritizing technological advancement and enhancing teachers' training in our basic schools to align with global best practices. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, as we strive towards allocating 20% of the national budget to the education sector to meet global standards, improve the quality of learning, and retain the best hands in the system, we must also remember that access to education is recognized as a human right and one of the key pillars of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, to which Nigeria is a signatory. The proposed amendment seeks to increase the share of the Consolidated Revenue Fund allocated to Universal Basic Education Commission from 2% to 4%. This augmentation is not an isolated initiative, but a pivotal component of a comprehensive strategy designed to reform the education sector and propel sustainable development in our nation as part of the Renewed Hope agenda. As stewards of public trust, we are tasked with ensuring that our educational system reflects the values of equity, opportunity, and excellence. The amendment before us today represents a tangible step towards fulfilling that mandate. It aligns with the recommendations of international bodies such as UNESCO and reaffirms our commitment to prioritize education as a fundamental human right as it aligns with SDG 4. In doubling our commitment to basic education, we send a powerful message to the world that Nigeria is resolute in its determination to invest in the future of its children, to break the cycle of poverty, and to unleash the full potential of its human capital. It is worthy to note that this bill is in line with the legislative agenda set by the People's House, which was approved and adopted by every one of us in this chamber. Specifically, Agenda 8.2, subsection 1, and I quote, amend the Universal Basic Education Commission Act 2004 to increase the share of the Consolidated Revenue Fund allocated to UVEC from 2% to 4%. The goal is to ensure that the allocation to education meets the recommended benchmark by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organizations of 15 to 20% share of the total national budget. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, in conclusion, the Universal Basic Education Amendment Act is not a luxury. It is a moral imperative. It is an investment in human dignity, in social justice, and in the promise of a brighter tomorrow.
That was Honorable Mukhtar Shagaya, representing Ilorin West Federal Constituency, Kwara State, speaking on the Bill for an Act to amend the Free and Compulsory Universal Basic Education Act. We saw that clip earlier. He talked about the lack of implementation of the UBE Act. And so we're going to speak further on this today. I'm joined by Ms. Irene Bangwell, co-founder, the NOSC School, Professor Onokpa Michael Monday, Professor of Pharmacology and Toxicology, University of Abuja. And finally, I have Dr. Hassana Shuaibu, Senior Programs Officer, ACE a Charity. I also have an audience in the studio who will be part of our discussions today. It's great to have you in the studio. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And I would like to begin with you, Professor Onokpa. Right, we need to lay the foundation because we need to identify the problems before we talk about solutions. And so just to lay that foundation there, really, what do you think are the problems plaguing our education system in Nigeria? And given the solutions that have been preferred over the years, how effective do you think it is in this 21st century?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. There are a lot of problems plaguing education in Nigeria today. And these problems can be surmounted. All we need is the willpower of the government, willpower of our communities, willpower of the people. Principally, we have the problem of funding. Funding for education is a major problem. Number two problem is what I will call policy somersaults. Yeah, it's one thing to have policies in place, and it's one thing to have these policies, and the following day you are changing it. What I will call a change of goals post. I will give instances as we go ahead. Another problem is lack of partnership. Education cannot be done by an individual. It can't be handled by the government alone. It is possible. Government provides the building. The building do not educate. Now, what about community participation? In so many communities before now, and I'm sure if you go to our local governments, our various communities out of the cities, you see the community secondary schools. I mean, the community schools. That is one. What about religious bodies? You can have the Islamic schools, Islamic schools, but taking care of the formal education. You also have missionary schools of those days. Of course, missionary schools, both Islam and Christian schools. I'll give one example. We used to have the Baptist high schools. We still have some of them.
We still do.
The primary school I attended was St. Paul's Primary School. But a problem came up when government took over the missionary schools. What happened? The missionaries were in charge. They were on top of the game. But when government took over, I don't want to say what happened, but they fell. So these are the problems that we have today. Another problem is lack of intervention, I will say. What do I mean by lack of intervention? It is possible that you have the workforce, okay? You have the workforce, maybe the teachers, the administrators, and so on. Are they properly remunerated? And if the answer is no, do you think they will give their best? So these are part of the problems that we have in education today.
Okay. All right, Professor Onopa, I mean, you've mentioned some of these problems, talking about the welfare of these teachers. You've talked about partnership as well. We still have, some of the schools that you talked about, these Islamic schools and the rest of it. But I'll still come back to you because we've not talked about the solutions proffered over the years, how effective it has been in the 21st century. Okay, so let me come to Ms. Bango now, right? You run a 100 Naira per day school, right? And I'm thinking 3 terms, if we're talking about 3 terms, that's about 6,600. Because if we're talking about a term, right, it's 3 months. Yes, 3 months. So in my head, the calculation will be about 6,600. You can share, further on, yeah. But what's your target audience? I mean, because 100 Naira, I'm thinking, well, maybe I want to enroll, right? But this 100 Naira, what's the quality of education it actually affords the students?
So first and foremost, the math is 6,000 because they're not in school every single day of the month. So it's about 20 we estimate 20 days a month and 60 days a term. The target audience are children in homes where parents are struggling financially. So it's like looking at it from a broad sense. When families are struggling financially, one of the things they sacrifice is their children's education. The thinking for low-income families is, let's eat first. You can go back to school next school year. Whereas their kids need education to break the cycle of poverty. So we created the NOSC 100 Naira Day School to say, look, while you're struggling, we don't want anything to interrupt your child's education, and we want him to access quality education. I think that's the most beautiful thing about the NOSC 100 Naira Day School, is 100 Naira a day only for the families accessing it, and that's where the lowest cost ends. Every other thing else is premium. I mean, today we had an impromptu visit by the Department of Quality Assurance to the school unannounced. And I was so proud to look at that record when they said, all physical facilities required present. So everything children need to access quality education. And let me explain what that means. A climate that helps them know that they're not where they're coming from, points them to their potential, teaches them self-leadership, makes education robust for them, shows them possibilities. That's what is offered at the NOSC 100 Naira Day School. Like we're saying, we need to give you everything that you need in your education to break out of poverty. And we want to be strategic about it. And I like to think that we think that that's the frame that public education should face, that the kids coming here need to be empowered to break out of poverty. And so we're fusing everything from mentoring and relationship and challenging them. I mean, I'm seeing my students get on, say, ChatGPT to do research, to design projects. That's what we're saying. We're saying we don't want what your parents are dealing with to hold you back. So that's what the NOSC 100 Naira Day school is all about.
So they have access to everything. You're talking about even, technology, because this is what, some schools lack, including public schools. They've not infused this technology in some of this education. We're talking about the 21st century. So you're saying with this 100 Naira, they can access all of this. So what's the success rate like?
Okay, so let me start with our Pioneer set. Is in SS3 now. I feel like I'm so excited because when we first started, some of the parents asked us, 100 Naira a day, won't the price change in second term? Won't it change? If it increases, we won't be able to afford it. And we've done 6 years. 2019, this is our 6th school year, and the fee is still 100 Naira a day. And so we've been consistent at providing that education for the children. So we're not saying we want to give them quality education. We are saying that we have already done it. Okay. One of the records is our first, we did this, the national exams for JES 3. Unassisted, the first time we wrote the external exam, 83% of our kids had credit in math and English, with the best performance coming out of math, with 83% of them doing so well in math. And we've done it again this year. This year, we didn't have any receipt in our BEC. And I'd just like to point out that the kids have had to work independently, because some of the things we've done is build structures to drive what we do. Okay. For example, when we say there's no malpractice, we do paper type exams, because we told the kids, the most important thing in school is that you're learning, and we're going to support you. So when you struggle, we want to see it on your script. Okay. When we see it on your script, we'll be able to mobilize support for you. So I know that in the last 5 school years, and this being the 6th, we've garnered the support and built the structure that children from low-income families need to become wholesome humans, thriving in character and in learning.
So that's the target audience, low-income.
Low-income, children from low-income families.
So 100 Naira, is that what you used to fund this?
It cannot be. So for the families, it's like, there's something Prof said. We need collaborations. These kids need quality education. Their parents cannot afford it. Nigeria needs productive workforce that needs quality education. So we come to you, you're struggling financially, you're thinking about your kids dropping out of school. We say, no. We're 200 million people. We're going to make sure your kids go to school, because this country is counting on your children's potential too. And so we come out there in the public and ask people, support us to keep kids in school. Now for the kids, when they pay 100 Naira a day, they get books, uniform, lunch. The girls are getting monthly sanitary pads. We're getting skills-based education. And so we come to people and say, we need to give it to these kids. I believe in them. They have a lot of potential. It takes us 80,000 Naira to cover this cost every term. So we have Nigerians coming to say, I'm going to co-sponsor. I'm going to fully sponsor these kids. So we have corporate organizations, we have individuals. So all we need from their families, commit that this is serious for you, and you'll do 100. But here's the thing, whether you can do the 100 Naira or not, we guarantee that the kids, and also whether they get a sponsor or not, they get 6 years secondary education.
All right. I'll still come back to you, to understand that again, how equipped they are, for the next move as well. Definitely. But let me come to Ms. Shuaibu now. It's charity, basically. Yours is radio program, right? That's the form of education. That's the alternative that you use. What's that like, and how effective is that in this 21st century, really?
Okay, thank you for that question. So for us at ACE Charity, one of the reasons we started ACE Radio School was because during the COVID-19 pandemic, children were stuck at home. And while there were several children from private schools or from higher socioeconomic status, they were able to access learning through the internet. They had laptops, they had phones. We had children who didn't have this luxury, staying back at home and not learning. And so we thought to ourselves, what is the form of technology that is accessible in northern Nigeria, in rural areas? And that is the radio. Over 80% of rural Nigerians, especially in northern Nigeria, own a radio. That is what you see the farmer, you see the cattle rearer with his radio, and so we decided to use that to teach. The idea was to teach during the COVID-19 pandemic. But what we realized was that even out-of-school children were calling us, telling us how they were learning, telling us how they were benefiting. And so we knew that we had to pivot to out-of-school children and not just focusing on school children during the pandemic. Okay. So once the pandemic was over and schools resumed, we knew that we couldn't leave out-of-school children behind. And so we started airing through the radio for out-of-school children specifically. So for our content, what we did was we ensured that the topics that are being taught are according to the national curriculum. And then we got private school teachers from high-quality schools to develop scripts on these topics and to record these topics. So we want to ensure that even though they are in the rural village, somewhere that we will never know, they are still getting learning from a highly qualified professional teacher. And so we try to make these topics interactive. We try to use local materials. We try to use stories. For example, counting. We will tell them to go and get stones and use that to learn how to count. We will tell them, is there beans, is there rice at home? Use that to learn how to count. Use that to add. Okay. So those are some of the things that we try to do to make it interactive.
But how practical is this if we compare this alternative radio and, we're comparing it with a technology?
Okay, so I think one thing we forget is that radio is also a technology. So I want to, I think 2 years ago or so, Nigeria actually launched the Nigerian Learning Passports. And what they're doing is they're providing online learning for children through the internet, but you need internet services. But what about the child who his father is a cattle rearer and he has to go to the farm, or he has to follow his father to rear cattle? What about the lady who has to go to the market with her mom and has to sell? She does not have an Android phone. So what should we do in this case? Do we leave them to wait until they have access to this online technology before they start learning? Then they will be left behind. So what radio does is it bridges this gap. Radio is not supposed to overtake, or we're not saying radio is better than ICT, but for some children and for a large percentage of children, that is the only form of ICT, or that is the only form of technology that they have. And that is the only form of learning that they are going to get. So in the meantime, while Nigeria is trying to catch up and trying to get these children to have access to this technology, at least they have Ace Radio School to learn.
All right. Let me come back to Professor Onokpa now. She has mentioned out-of-school children. She also mentioned it, and also talking about solutions preferred over the years. What do you think that we need to do to basically get... I mean, they've talked about radio. She's also talked about the 100 naira a day. But we don't even have this infrastructure, right? We don't even have these classrooms. We're saying the universal basic education is saying that we need 20,000 schools and about 900,000 classrooms. So what do you think can be done, again, to get these out-of-school children in school? Or should we be looking outside schools? All right, we'll come back after this break. We'll have to go on a break, and we'll be back.
Members of the press will appreciate that there's a general concern about behavior and conduct of our young ones in the country and our social values. And probably as a fact also that civic education is a compulsory subject in the secondary schools. But with all that, we are still having some deterioration and serious concern about our national values. And so that's going to strengthen what we are doing. And we are rolling out actually a new curriculum for all schools in Nigeria from this October, for primary schools and for all secondary schools, which is supposed to incorporate knowledge, skills, and values, especially with a special focus on skills, so that our students, when they graduate, they will have skills that they can connect with the economy. So what that means is that it's going to strengthen the national values that our students will be graduating with.
Welcome back. This is Pivotal, a Daria Media production supported by the MacArthur Foundation. I'm your host, Zainab Balogun Olowu, and we'll continue the conversation which centers on reimagining education in Nigeria. Let me come back to Professor Onokpa now. Go ahead. You were talking about, the out-of-school children. What do we put in place to ensure that, yes, these children get back to classes? Or are we talking about outside classes? Is there any other thing that can be done, basically?
Thank you very much. There are 20 million of them. That's a time bomb. waiting to explode.
Yes, it is.
And it's not just waiting to explode, it is already exploding. These are ready to use for the bad people. In the northeastern Nigeria, we have had Boko Haram for over 10 years. These are substrates that are ready for use. There are 20 million of them. A few years ago, 13 million. It's increasing. Now, do we just fold our arms and say it will take care of itself? Never. Now, the buck always lies on the government. Because if I contested for an election and I'm leading a people, I should be concerned about everything that concerns them, including education. Number one, educational infrastructure. Okay? Now, go to all the states of the federation. Go to our local governments. What kind of infrastructure do you see? You will cry. You will cry. Now, it shows that the government is doing something, but it's not enough. Number two, what about the underserved population? There are a lot of them. Now, Abuja, Nigeria is not Abuja. Nigeria is not Kaduna City. Nigeria is not Port Harcourt. There are hinterlands. And a lot of Nigerians reside in those areas. Now, why don't you provide this educational infrastructure there? That's number one. Number two, what about teacher training? What the ACE is doing using the radio, brilliant, very good. But can this be certificated? The answer is no. So it will be tantamount to just enlightening a population. Now, what can they do with that? They are doing a brilliant work, but globally now you need to be certificated to say, yes, I am educated. Now, why don't governments, communities come together, have infrastructure where these children can be certificated? That's number two. Okay. Number three, and lastly, before I hand over to you, what about early child education? Especially children, the girl child education. These are underserved groups. If you go to many communities in Nigeria, the girl child is second class. Okay? So that area is also very important. Early child education is important. The girl child education is also very important.
All right, Professor Onokpa, I'll come back to you because that is important. You've mentioned some of this, but really what can be done? Because like I said, we are trying to provide solutions here that is applicable to, the challenges we face in the education sector. But right now, I would like to engage with my audience because I know that they also have, something to say. We're reimagining education, basically. And so, you can ask your questions, right? Just signify and introduce yourself, your name, where you work, and please direct the question to our panelists. Let me know who you're directing it to. Okay, so, all right. That lady out.
Good evening, my name is Joyce. I work with an NGO as a program officer. And thank you, our panelists, for an amazing session. We've been speaking a lot about education, and just like Professor said, we have a lot of interventions going on. But how do we really engage the government to work together with the non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, to ensure that these interventions are recognized and helping us reduce the out-of-school children in our country? Because it feels like the NGOs are working on their own and the government is working on the other end. So how do we bridge this gap between the NGOs and the government to bring them together to ensure that the out-of-school children, the numbers are reduced in Nigeria? Thank you.
Who are you directing your question to?
I think Professor already said I mentioned it, so maybe he can help conclude that.
All right. Thank you so much, Joycey. Okay. We'd like to take about 2 questions. Is there any other person? All right, go ahead. You.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Ibuku Najabono, and I'm a law school intern.
Could you please stand?
I'm a law school intern. My name is Ibuku Najabono. I'm directing my question to Professor Onakpa here. There's an issue when it comes to leaving secondary school and going to the universities, Because we've seen over time now that the university school fees have been going up, like, from time to time. I think basically because of government funding. So how do we bridge this gap? Because the common population cannot currently send their awards to universities after leaving secondary schools. And we know how almost worthless the secondary school leaving certificate is currently in Nigeria. So what methods and rules can the government put in place to subsidize university education? And we've seen the current administration talking about the student loan currently in the country, but we've not seen up to like a sizable amount of students that have been able to participate in this and have gotten funding from the student loan. So how are we going to subsidize this? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Professor Onokpa, let's start with Joyce's question. She was talking about the NGOs and the government. How do they work hand in hand to ensure that, these out-of-school children actually have a place?
Okay, thank you very much. Public-private partnership. I'll give two examples, even though these are international organizations. UNICEF, UNESCO. UNESCO prescribed 15 to 20% of budgetary allocation to education. That's a kind of partnership. Now, if we have not governmental organizations that are interested in establishing institutions or partnering with some schools like the NOSC, that we say, why not? And partnership must not be directly with the government. NOSC is here. They are looking for funding. They are looking for partners. You can scout for such secondary schools or institutions. And, of course, it will be a great idea. Of course, nothing also stops NGOs from partnering with government in providing infrastructures like internet. When we talk about infrastructure, it must not be a gigantic building. If you provide internet for such schools that are looking for partners, it will go a long way.
Let me come in here. Maybe I'll allow Ms. Bangol respond to this. He talked about NGOs partnering with the government. We know again that there are certain things that the private sector can do, including the NGOs, because you still have to get approval from the government. And so how is that like? Are there challenges? I mean, you have that NGO. How do you feel that is like?
So first and foremost, we need to reorient ourselves, whether we're NGO or government, that we are partners in progress. Everyone feels like the other person, sometimes one person's work feels like the other person is, you're finding fault, you're looking for problems in the system, and so there's a distrust. However, from our experience running the North 100 Day School for, this is our 6th school year, we haven't received the kind of support or even, like maybe Ministry of Education or Department of Quality Assurance is coming to evaluate us. There is absolutely no consideration. When we are going through any accreditation process, you're paying about the same thing as, other private schools. There's no consideration that you're a partner. And many times when government officials walk into your facility, the first thing is, you're a non-profit. You're getting a lot of grants. You're getting a lot of money. And I'm looking at them and I'm saying, my first school year, I had 30 children. Only one of them was sponsored. The second year, I had 63. Only 5 were sponsored. The third year, I had 82. Only 33 were sponsored. And they're looking at me and thinking, oh, because you must be an NGO, you have a whole lot of money. So I think we need to get to a place where we see ourselves as partners and we can determine like some metric that says, when we come into your school and you're a non-profit school or you're a non-profit initiative, this is what we want to see to know that you're serious, you're standard, and this is the kind of support that we're going to give to you.
Okay.
Otherwise, many times the thinking is, you don't need to do this. We have public schools. And so we're not sitting on the table as partners yet.
And at the end of the day, we're trying to work towards
we're
the common
all working
goal.
to the same thing. We're working towards the same goal. Prof said it, there's too many opportunities for public-private partnership, but there's a distrust. We're not meeting on the table. All
right, Professor Onokpa. The other question was about school fees. He talked about how it's been increasing and how parents cannot really afford this. So what role should the government, put in place?
Okay. I'll start from the government and I'll tell you what university communities are doing. I know of my university. Government recently, I didn't want to talk about this. talked about the student loans. He mentioned it. Why loans? Why not grants? Why not scholarship? Why not financial assistance? Is it too difficult for our government to do this? Because I know that so many Nigerian students scout for these scholarships abroad in the United States, in some African countries, in Europe, and they have fully funded scholarship. So if we do this in our country, it will go a long way to help our students. The majority of them are from indigent homes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yes, because of time.
Okay.
Let me come back to the audience now. Please go straight to your question. 1 minute thereabout, or if you have a contribution as well, just go straight to the point.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ololade Ogunubi, and I'll direct my question to Mrs. Bangwell. Okay. It's nice meeting you once again. I run a foundation, and I also have a free school, which we have 100 of them. It's been 2 years. It started off as a grant from, I don't know if it's still the current Emir of Kano, that's Sanusi. But after the end of the grant, I couldn't just tell the children to go home. So we have to find a way to sustain it. But that's not my question. My question is, how do you deal with students that have everything at their disposal, but will still prefer to stay back? So when we started off, the sustainability, we had 2 kids drop out of school. And when we asked, going to their house to ask why, she said, because her friends are married. And whenever they're done from school, she feels left out. It's like, you're no more in the clique, so you don't have to be here. And the other one just wants to get married for the fun of it. So how do you do it? You have everything, but still, you still don't want to go in school. Thank you.
All right. One more question. Is there any other person in the audience? Quickly.
Hey, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
My name is Marjorie Pada from the Knox 100 Naira Day School. I think I wanted to ask, the government and the non-governmental organizations have been playing a big part in trying to reduce the rate of uneducated children. What should parents do, the general public do, to help assist government and non-governmental organizations in this?
All right. Let me come to Ms. Shuaibu now to answer the question by Ololade. 100, she talked about people having everything, right, but still feel left out. What's your thoughts on that?
So one thing we have recognized from our own programming is that it's value. So what is the value of education in that person's life? One of the reasons why you will see children, they can see the opportunity to learn, but they don't want to do it is because they don't see the value of education any longer. Why? I won't say it is only the children's fault. I'll say because the government has also failed its children. So you have situations where you see someone struggle to send their child to school, and the child goes to school, does everything to pass, but there is still no job. So when you tell the younger brother or younger sister of that person that education is the way, what do you think that person is going to think or believe? So in the sense where you have children who are going to school and they're not seeing the value, there's no return on investment of this education, they're going to be discouraged.
Right.
And now you hear things like school is scam. Now you have boys dropping out of school because they want to do Yahoo Yahoo. That is what is happening now. In Western Nigeria, we are seeing that there are even more girls than boys out of school because they want to engage in fast economic activities.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Shuaibu. Ms. Bangol, I'd like you to, react to the last question asked by, he was talking about governments and NGOs, basically things that they've done in the sector. I'd like you to react to that.
So his perspective is, now we're saying NGOs should do this, government should do this, what are individuals doing? And I think it's a good way it's a good question he's asking, because it's individuals that have kept the doors of North 100 Naira Day School open. Individuals are taking up to co-sponsor and fully sponsor other people's children. Nigerians generally are philanthropic. Someone is taking care of someone's child in their village, at church, in the mosque. And so we've seen more and more of that grow. But what I want to use this opportunity to say is more and more people should look out for their neighbor's kid. Should look out for that other child that is not at school. Should find a way to make sure, is it an exercise book, is it a notebook? Because in all of us even rallying around to make sure the child next door is going to school,
that child starts to sense that there's some value in this process. That's why people outside of my parents are invested in it. So I want to use the opportunity to just say thank you to everyone that's kept the doors of different NGOs open. AC Charity is open because individuals are giving. The North Conrad ID, we're open because individuals are giving. And so beyond government and we, the NGO workers, we want to ask people to come in to support us. But he asked a very important question: what do our parents do? I think parents need to start prioritizing financial education. There are many families struggling financially, and it's not because funding flowed income. It's because we have not commonized financial education. People are not knowing how to grow wealth, and these are some of the things I think need to also be available for people even in poor families and low-income communities, that we need to become stewards of resource. Because some of the pains for the kids that are out of school and struggling today is because they've seen wealth, or they've seen what could have been wealth, and they've seen it lost. And so I think providing financial education to all adults living in Africa, living in Nigeria, can help parents steward their resources better so that their kids don't have to be out of school as a result of finances.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Bangwal. We'll have to go on a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Every second and every minute, something new happens.
The Nigerian National Patrol.
The news breaks.
People at a spot, and angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has...
We bring you the story within the story, and that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
When you look at the internal rate of returns, that when you invest into education, you are going to get some social benefit, it is really worth it. But what that is telling us as policymakers is that we need to actually redo our curriculum. We should begin to do what we call projection. What sort of professionals do we need? What are the professionals that we are producing? We are in a scientific world. What's the ratio? The policy is that, it's going to be 60% science, 40% arts. But in reality, when you look at it, it's mostly like 65% arts as against science. So there's a disconnect. We should begin to look at what the NUC and our universities are producing. We should begin to look at what does the industrial sector, what does it need, and what sort of graduate are we supposed to produce to be able to meet that needs, and interview employers to do tracer studies. Our product actually meeting up so that there should be that connection between the industry and our university, the industries, and our polytechnic and colleges of education, so that we'll begin to see where that disconnect is and how can we improve on what we need to do so that the benefit of education will come out clearly.
All right, welcome back. This is still Pivotal, a Daria Media production and supported by the MacArthur Foundation. And I'll come back to my panelists now because you will have to wrap up soon. But really, we have to talk about the curriculum. I mean, we saw that clip that just played, and it seems like there's a significant mismatch between what is being taught in schools and the skills actually required, in a global competitive workforce. So what reforms do you think that we need to put in place to be in tune with today's economic realities? Let me start with you, Ms. Bango.
So I'm very passionate about talking about curriculum. So I want to be careful how I say this. There is a problem with the curriculum. However, there's a problem with the context of the delivery of the curriculum. The Nigerian education right now is designed for kids to go through school and be taught to grades. As long as we have the orientation that kids are going through school to write exams, we're going to have a new curriculum, and we're going to teach it the same way we're teaching this one, and we're going to fail again. So we need to readjust our mindset about what the purpose of our education is. I teach kids from low-income families, and so when I stand in front of them to teach, I kind of take whatever topic is in front of me to imagine that this topic has to empower them with ideas, with solutions, with a pathway, with information that they can use. And this is my mindset every single day. Today, I taught a commerce class on communication. And the goal for me was to show them how the further people get information about whatever product you have, the more you produce. Because my mindset is I want to show them that prosperity is within reach. So I do want the curriculum to be reformed to reflect the 21st century reality, but I want it to be reformed with teacher skill. I want it to be reformed with infrastructure in the school. Otherwise, even with all the conversations going on that there's going to be an AI integration in the curriculum, I assure you, if we don't stop thinking that we are teaching to grades, people are going to teach children how to define what artificial intelligence is, and there will never be an opportunity for them to put it to any form of use.
That is very crucial, really. I mean, talking about that, sometimes it seems like we do more of theory than practical. Somebody mentioned education. People think education is a scam because at the end of the day, you graduate, some people think they don't get jobs. Now, given the rate of unemployment in the country, what role do you think that technical and vocational training should play in reimagining education in the country? I'm saying this because people graduate, there's no job. It's not like there's no job, but because they don't have these skills, right? We get people outside the country to come and do our roads, or, you know, we see carpenters, but there's really no vacancy for that because you think, okay, it's just, you know, a skill, vocational skill, they should be there. Dr. Shuaibu, I'd like you to react to that.
Okay, so if we are able to incorporate vocational and technical education in schools, then children can have the skills they need to not only support themselves in schools, but to support themselves out of school when they have graduated. So we need to let go of this mentality that you have to be a lawyer, you have to be you can actually, someone can decide to learn a skill, even if it is fashion design. There are schools in America and other countries. There's school of design, there's school of music, there's school of arts. So why can't we harness people's skills and teach people vocational skills from primary school through secondary school? Let's have different vocational courses, and then we have these children pick the one that they want to do, then they grow it, and then they can use that to fund themselves, especially for low-income families. They can use that to sponsor themselves in school, and after school, they can still have something to do. We need to let go of this whole idea of it has to be something theoretical. And this is also, it's just quickly, it's not just about hard skills, but also about teaching problem solving, creativity, critical thinking, leadership. These are skills that we can teach in schools with in low resource settings. Just teaching someone to go and interview their grandmother and learn about something about history. You've taught that person communication and presentation.
All right, Dr. Shuaibu, you mentioned that, the quality, talking about critical thinking, but we need the right set of teachers to actually put this through. And so, Professor Nokpa, talking about the quality of teachers, talking about, training, how can teacher training, and teacher training development be prioritized, to ensure quality education in the country?
A quality teacher today, tomorrow will not be a quality teacher if you don't train and retrain that teacher. Okay, so teacher training, teacher retraining is very, very important. That is the solution to that. Conference attendance, teacher training, and so on.
But do you think it's just that? I mean, there's some persons who teach, for instance, English language, and you're wondering, how is this person an English teacher? How did that person get into the system in the first place?
That's a serious one now.
Yes, it is.
But the problem lies in people who are interested in teaching don't go into teaching.
Yes.
Now, it is the poor students who performed very low that say, oh, go and study education. And they come to faculties of education and say, go and study English education, so that the consequence of that is that our teachers are the poor ones. So the poor ones are made to be students of education, and eventually they come out and garbage in, garbage out.
That's a very sad one. But because of time, really, we have to wrap up. We cannot exhaust this conversation. There's a lot. There's a disparity, in the north and the south. But probably again, revisit this topic. And like we said, it is everyone's role, in reimagining education in Nigeria. We'll all have to work together. But before we go, here is a quick recap of key points made today. Nigeria's education system faces persistent challenges, including inadequate funding, policy instability, and limited partnerships. To move forward, artificial intelligence, AI, and other technologies like radio should be adopted depending on the realities of young Nigerians across the country. In this 21st century, embracing innovation and creative approaches is crucial for educational progress. Integrating technology as an alternative learning method and increasing resources are essential steps towards achieving quality education for Nigeria's growing population. And that's this month's edition of Pivotal. I would like to thank my guests on the panel today and to the audience in the studio, as well as to you at home, and of course to the MacArthur Foundation for its support. Join me next month on the 30th of October as I discuss with another set of Nigerians implementing unconventional ideas that have the power to change our country for the better. I am Zainab Balogu Olu. Good evening.